Hi and welcome to this detailing video for this Whistle Hurren. As you can see from the introduction, this bike is a well-used mountain bike and we're detailing it today along with servicing it, but we're going to mainly show you the detailing on this video, and we're going to be putting new cables, new chain, etc. on this, as well as some bearing work. When we do this sort of thing, if we're stripping down a group set as we are here, we tend to put all those items in an ultrasonic cleaner straight away. We leave that running while we're doing the rest of the work, so as it really sort of gets in deep on all those parts. And here you can see the brake caliper. This is actually a cabled disc brake bike. You can see quite a bit of rust, etc. there. We don't obviously put those in the ultrasonic cleaner. This is the chain set coming off here and the cable outers. We get all them off so that this is right back to frame. We even managed to find cobwebs under the headset cap. We had a lot of trouble with this headset. You can see that the steerer tube there has gone quite rusty, and we had an awful job getting that headset out. So much so that we actually replaced it, putting it back together, because there was some rust even in the headset itself, so we decided to replace it. So obviously, as we always do, we start off with a soap based cleaning spray. This sort of allows all the mud to soak in and become looser. And then after that, once that's sat on the bike for 10 or 15 minutes, we use a soft brush, nylon brush, to work along the bike. And this is just with warm soapy water. And you can see as we go down those details there that the on the right end, you can see as it's starting to clean, this sort of brings off the loose debris. We are not fans of high pressure hose cleaning of bikes. You know, a lot of riders will get home and they'll high pressure hose a bike down. I've never been a fan of that myself. I always like to use a brush, because like here where we're doing the bearings, you can see the brush is working hard, but you're not impregnating that bearing with soapy water or hot water or whatever it be to shorten the life of that bearing. And it can damage the seals on bearings as well by high pressure hosing them. And so we're not fans of high pressure hoses here at Bike Speeds. We do like to do things with a little bit more of a tactile feel. I'm using a microfiber towel now to dry down the frame, which yeah, we love our microfiber towels. Now this is the steerer tube, and you can see it was absolutely caked in rust, and that was even after we cleaned it, getting it apart. So we filed it down with a diamond file, and then now we're wet and drying it down to sort of bring it as near to the original tubing as possible without taking too much away. And you can see now that's ready to be refitted with a bearing and is in much better condition than when we took it off the bike. Again, we're just using our soap sprayer on the forks, and again upside down so that we don't get anything in through them seals on the stanchions. And we're just using our brush again. And yeah, it's just a slow process, keeping going, keeping working, keeping that soap working in, and just doing it, you know, cautiously and calmly as we go. So we're in a lockdown here in the UK at the moment, and yeah, obviously things aren't quite as busy as normal, so we've got a little bit of time, which is why we've been doing these videos. But we have a little bit of history with this bike. So this is a typical bike that would be used by a child for schooling, because it actually belonged to one of my sons and he had it all through his school days. And so it's been typically used, but it has stood a lot outside. So at this stage we're scrubbing the tyres, and we were actually amazed that this bike is 8 years old, and we scrubbed these tyres with Fairy Liquid, neat, without any water. We scrubbed the tyres and the treads, and then we cleaned it with soapy water, as we're doing now. And the tyres came up like new. We couldn't believe that white stripe around the tyre looked like new once we finished the bike. I think we were all surprised at that. So again, nylon brush around the bearing area, and that way you're not forcing water into the bearings. Another good reason not to use high pressure hose is, you know, for your wheel bearings, it can force that water in through the seals, and then you've got water sitting in your bearings. You know, it's I'm not a fan of that. So now we're just drying this off with a microfiber towel, going around all the treads of the tyres. Again, with detailing a bike, it's patience and perseverance to get the best results. And you can see from the tyre wall of that shot how smooth that looks, which for an 8-year-old tyre is amazing. So we're just cleaning up the inside of the disc here. And then you can see the bolts on the stems were rusty too, so we took them out and just gave them a wire brush and just give them a clean up. The thing with rust is it can look an awful lot worse than it is, as you'll see on the brake caliper shortly. And you know, one literally pinprick of rust will spread on itself like a spider's web and will look 3 or 4 times as large as it does, you know, and you can clean it up and it look quite good. So this is the handlebar grips. This is another one of our little tricks. We put this in neat bleach and scrub it, and then we fill this container with water, so it becomes a bleach solution. It's hot water, and we leave that soaking again while we're doing other work, so that can do its stuff without us having to spend too much time on it. And now we work onto the T-cutting of the frame. This is obviously part of the process. It gets all those little marks and things. You'll see wherever the cloth is running, there'll be black marks, and then after we work this in, like this red mark here on the frame, you can see it just works that way, and that's T-cut for you. It just takes a nice little cut through the paints and just, yeah, it's really good. For this we put the forks, the new headset bearings, put the forks back in, the handlebars on, just because altogether they're an awful lot easier to polish than separately. So for the polishing stage we put everything back together on that front end. So now we're working down the main logos on the bike. So as I was saying earlier, this bike actually belonged to one of my sons. He used it all through high school, which meant it sat outside all through the day when he was at school. It wasn't undercover. So he's always actually been pretty good with these bikes. I mean, a lot of children, they tend to ruin bikes quite quickly, really. But he used this bike all through high school, and he kept it in actually amazing condition. He oiled his chain, did all those things, and I never had to encourage him to do that. He just did it. But the bike did sit outside. We live on the coast. We're on the east coast here of the UK, and consequently the air is very salty and things go rusty. And so this bike had an awful lot of surface sort of rust, and like where we're T-cutting, you get an impregnated sort of film on a bike in this area. And same with cars, everything really, you just get a film that sort of is from the sea air, and this just takes it off and really brings the bike back to its original paint finish. So we were working around the forks. This was actually the only gloss bit on the bike around this head part here. It looked really nice when I polished it compared with the rest of the bike, because the rest of the bike is matte. But yeah, it looked right. So we're just cleaning a little bit of rust off there on the stanchions and working on the logos. The logos sort of are you know, one area you spend an awful lot of time polishing. Yeah, so we're working down the forks. Yeah, so we serviced this bike up because actually, although he's now long since, like we say, this is 8 years old, this bike, we worked it out to the other day, or thereabouts. It is a bike that actually all the family still use, including my son whose bike it was. He used it as his main mode of transport, and but we've all borrowed it from time to time because it's a bulletproof go-to bike, really. You know, if we're using road bikes a lot, and if it's chucking it down with rain, and we'll jump on this. And yeah, it's been a good workhorse bike, this one. So yeah, so now we're just working along the chainstays, and that chainstay had a lot of damage just where the chain would rub, because when it's if it's cross geared, so you're in the smallest cogs, the chain ran along that, and obviously my son has used it like that a few times because the paint was completely took off by the chain. We were contemplating what to do with that, but we actually decided to leave it because this video is all about sort of making a silk purse out of a sow's ear hole, really. You know, we want to show you what is possible just by giving the bike a good clean up. We're actually now onto the polishing stage. This is Autoglim's car polish, high resin polish, and this will sort of help take off any T-cut that you've left on, but also it just gives a surface onto the paint and finishes the stickers and everything that really is nice in the rain, because the rain sits on it, and also a bike does stand outside. It will stop that sort of build up film of dirt and debris. It just, you know, if you polish a bike regularly with this stuff, it just looks amazing every time, really. You know, it's a great polish. It is our favourite. We're using microfiber towels here because they're actually really good for this sort of thing. They take the polish off really well. They put it on nicely, you know, without scratching. So yeah, we love our microfiber towels here at Bike Speed, so I must admit we love them. So yeah, so now we're just working the forks. Again, this is with the high resin polish, and then we work onto the wheels. So this really, the wheels is the most time consuming part of a bike detail. So we're working around the rim, we'll then do the spokes, the hubs, etc., and bring them up as nice as we can before eventually we get to this stage, which is the polishing stage. A nice buff up and you know, working those little nooks and crevices and really bring that bike up. You can see that logo, which was heavily scratched, heavily marked, now almost looks like a new one, other than the wall wounds that are on the bike. As you can see there, that chainstay that I mentioned, you can actually see it there in that shot, quite damaged. But again, with this polish, that should stop that going rusty or getting any worse. Well, that's an aluminium frame, but if it was steel, you know, the polish would stop that rust building up on there. So yeah, we're looking quite good now. That new headset is in, which was, like I say, a real problem for us at the time, but nothing that we can't sort out. Yeah, you can see that's really starting to look nice now. And again, as I'm buffing that, you can see those tyre walls. We just couldn't believe the condition of these tyres, to be honest with you. Good tyre. So yeah, we're working the polish there, getting that nice and shiny. And once we've done the frame, etc., we're just onto the mechanicals really. So chain set. We're just using hot, warm, soapy water on this. Again, pedal bearings, you've got to consider those. If you're using a high pressure hose, you'll blow straight into those bearings, and you know, it's not good for them. So we're just working the pedals. Now what we're doing here with the rust is on the, you know, we try and bring everything up as best we can. They didn't come up brilliantly, but we use a soft brass brush for that sort of thing. It just brings it up lovely. This chain set was actually a little bit worn, but it wasn't skipping, so we did decide to put it back on the bike, because again, for the purpose of this video, which is mainly about detailing and bringing the bike up as good as you can, you know, we didn't want to replace parts that didn't have to be replaced. So we chose to put this one back on, and it'll do hundreds of miles still, you know, so it's got a good life left in it, but it's showing signs of age. And the pedals were remarkable as well. They were in, you know, bearings and nose felt good. So we just use our nylon brush, you know, warm soapy water, brings it up nicely. If it was thick in mud, we might even put this through the ultrasonic cleaner. This, you'll see now, is quite amazing with the old brass brush, how that brings those fittings on that caliper up. You know, they were red rust, and actually once you clean off that, you can see the chrome shining through underneath. You know, it's just amazing really what you can do with a little bit of time on a bike. You take a bike that you think is rusty and worn out, and just by cleaning it, you suddenly realise it's not worn out, it's just needed a clean. So this sort of really shows the fact that the bike is well used and well loved. I must admit, I don't think I've ever took this bike in and done any work on it. I just left my son to his own devices with this bike. You know, it's even then, it's done thousands of miles, this bike, so he must have cleaned it at some point, because it wasn't really caked up. So this is the jockey wheels. Again, they're, you know, you could argue that you wouldn't want to, some of these jockey wheels have bearings in them, so you wouldn't really want to be jet washing those. But so I do take the jockey wheels out when I put the rest of the derailleur into the ultrasonic cleaner. And we grease these up, and you know, it's all part of a Bike Speed service. And now the parts are coming out the ultrasonic clean, and you can see they're almost clean straight out. The ultrasonic really agitates that dirt off them, and they come out of there almost as new. You know, they need very little work to get them back on the bike. Just warm soapy water in them. We grease all the pivot points on the derailleur. You know, that'll do. Well, it's more than serviceable for thousands of miles yet. You know, that one's not even halfway through its life, I wouldn't have thought. So yeah, just a little clean up on there. You can see how shiny that is, and that's almost straight out. Also did the derailleur hanger, because you can't, you know, when you're just washing stuff on a bike, you can't get deep in. The cassette on this bike actually was thick, and we use this little plastic tool, because even after it's come out of the ultrasonic cleaner, sometimes with cassettes you just need a little bit of extra help to get that deep final part, and so that's what we did there. Just cleaned out between each of the gears, and that's come up as good as new. A little brush with the old nylon brush just to get right in there, and the final cogs. So that's now ready to go back on the bike. And then on the saddle here we're using an aloe vera cream. We use this on leathers and plastics, etc. It's a lovely cleaner, brings them up nicely. So at this stage, we didn't show you before, but didn't show you that process of putting the bike back together, because that's for another video, another time maybe. But now we're just using the detailing spray. This sort of leaves a film on the bike that just helps stop dirt really sticking into the bike, and it also just gives it a nice final shine. Just really brings those bike up so they almost look like they've just come out of the factory. Although this bike has got a few battle scars, you can see one on the crossbar there. You know, when you think this is an 8-year-old bike used through high school, used by a family, and you can see how nice that bike looks in this video. You know, that little bit of love and attention, that little bit of detailing, the bike can come up lovely. I mean, we spent the best part of 6-7 hours on this bike, and that is the same with any bike speed service where it includes a detailing like this. It's incredibly time consuming. The final bit of this process was I made this little cap to cover a rusty hole, and there you go.